On this episode of Beyond the Art, we sit with Erik Brodt, co-founder of Ginew, the groundbreaking Native American brand, redefining how Indigenous identity, heritage, and craftsmanship live in the contemporary world. Erik brings a rare depth of intention to Ginew, where garments are not trends, but stories, responsibilities, and acts of cultural continuity. This conversation invites us to look at fashion not just as what we wear, but as who we are. This is Beyond the Art. Well, Erik, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at.
Pleasure to be here with you, Craig.
Well, thank you. Got a question for you. When was the moment you realized that storytelling through fashion could be just as powerful as storytelling in medicine?
Well, when I think about the origin of our brand, it was more about belonging. In many ways, the stories that I heard and that Amanda heard about our family, we didn't quite see them in the fashion ecosystem. So I think about the time that we really got interested and launched Ginew, we were seeking for something ourselves that we couldn't find. And I think that was pieces that were more than the product, right? Pieces that were more than the fabric, more than the product, because there's this idea that in fashion, the product will speak for itself. But
Right.
I think that there's so much more to it than that, right? Like that just feels to me very hollow. And I think that we wanted to be wearing things that like expressed who we are like every single day. And very similar in medicine with our work that we do there. So a lot of what we do is in health workforce development and making sure that there are more American Indian Alaska Native people in medicine, healthcare careers, but then also in like the teaching faculty roles at the MD granting medical schools across the country. And it's oftentimes the stories that help bring along others with you. There's ways of like imparting lessons or experiences or like, I don't want to say like hope, but opening up doors.
Correct.
Just showing
right.
that there's like a path forward. So, I mean, like, because you could do like WebMD and just try to have somebody answer your questions based on your like heart rate and your physical metrics, the product, right? Or you could have somebody listen to you in your full context and your full story. And maybe that's where they understand where other things are coming from. So I think that's where there's like a lot of overlap. I think in many ways, being a physician, there's actually an Ojibwe elder who told me this once, who's also a physician, and I don't know if I think they're really close to retirement now, but they said something effective. As a physician, you're a keeper of secrets. You're a keeper of stories. I thought that was really beautiful. And I think in many ways, what we've tried to do both in medicine and in fashion is lean into being authentic around the stories like rising to the top in our everyday life and existence, right?
Well,
like authentic, real stories.
I think that's an important factor, especially for our culture and where we come from, in the authenticity that we're telling it. And it's not the narrative that someone else is telling it, that we have the seat at the table and the space and environment to actually tell those storytellers and those about us. Well, your Ojibwe heritage comes through powerfully in Ginew. Was there a teaching story from your childhood that you found yourself really drawn to again and again as you design?
I think it was more like values, right? A lot of times, like things like working hard, being honest, trying to do right by the community and make things last. Strength, bravery, courage. Because I mean, some of this stuff, it may sound odd that it may take courage to have a brand in this day and age.
Right.
Yet it takes a ton of courage. There's always like, as like a native or indigenous brand, I'm sure you probably saw this playing out a lot at India market. But like, you have to be so much more to be accepted within the fashion ecosystem. You can't just be about the product.
Right.
Like you have, and like we've even faced that in our like wholesale realm and like going to markets where other brands, if they're a Japanese brand, they can have a Jewish guy standing there selling it. They can have a Finnish guy selling a Mexican brand. But if you're American Indian brand, you can only have American Indian people there. Very strange. It's like there's expectations and different rules for being American Indian Alaska Native within many spheres.
True.
And I think that fashion is no exception to that.
Very, very
and
true.
I think that from like a story standpoint, what we were seeing, I mean, we've been doing this for 15 years now. So when we first started, I think Bethany Yellowtail she had either started or was just about to start. Or maybe we started around the same time. And I think most of the other brands that had started around the same time as us are now gone. Or no longer doing it. And I think there was just this realization that we wanted to tell our story in a way that was like true to like who we are. And in many ways, the story of natives in fashion that was being told was one of very much outsiders looking in. Even like our very first fashion show that we went to.
Right.
I could not believe how they had so many Japanese people dressed up as Navajos. I thought it was pretty wild. But they thought it was the coolest thing ever. And we laugh about that. And I don't think they meant any harm. Right. And I think very much in the Japanese culture, there's like a reverence for things that's different than like, so some people would like label it as appropriation, etc. And I think there's just something different within the Japanese culture about that was like really reverent.
I think they take it more to a respect level instead of being dress up.
There was nothing funny about it. There was nothing dress up. There was nothing costume about it. Like these were like, they were wearing things that they had actually gone and met the people that made their clothing. They'd visit them on the reservation, purchase things from them, etc. Like it was very intentional. It still struck me as odd. Right. I won't disagree with that at all, because that was a real emotion I had. I was like, this feels odd. And I think that in many ways, the stories that we tried to weave into the collection were more about those values that we experienced as children, or we heard through stories of relatives that we never got to meet. And I think there's themes of things that kind of appeared off and on throughout the collection. I can remember when I was really young, it just like, it's burned in my memory of walking through the reservation, through the woods, and then finding a spot where there was a Thunderbird carved on like the Ojibwe Thunderbird symbol was like carved on a birch bark log. And then I started seeing it on canoes, and I started seeing it on people's garages, and I started noticing it. But it just like really struck me that there was this common thread identity symbol that was almost like hidden in plain sight, but everybody knew what it was. And a lot of people knew the story about it. And I like, that's one theme that's like kept coming up over and over and over and over for me. And then some of the other stuff are like the stories of the families that just continued to surface over and over. Like people who did things that were difficult and hard
Mm-hmm.
and required a lot of personal sacrifice for the betterment of the community. I mean, those are really powerful stories. So
I get that completely. I mean, with my own brand and the storytelling and translating into objects and furniture and lighting and other products that I design, it's like being authentic to it and interpretation of how it's being still respected, of how I'm translating that story. Well, what lessons from being in spaces where you're often the first or the only have you shaped the way you've built Gnew's identity as a native first brand?
one of the things that we've really been vocal and intentional about is many people believe that we spoke for all Native people in our collection. And really, we speak for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We speak for myself. We speak for Amanda. That's it. We don't speak for our tribes. We don't speak for all the members in our families. We don't speak for all Native people. Whereas there was some, and I think that was a big hurdle, like mentally for a lot of people with the collection,
Mm-hmm.
because their expectations and their perceptions were very different than the stories and the authenticity that we were bringing forward. Like even with we were talking about the name of the brand earlier.
Yeah.
I still remember the very first show we went to in Europe, and they were just like, "You must change the name of the brand. It must be more American Indian sounding." I remember this like big leader saying that, and I was just like, "That's a Native word. And it means this." He was just like, "You must keep the name of your brand." Like, and I was like, "A, it's not your choice.
Right, right.
B, very odd." Because they were like just sharing like ultimately their perceptions and their
Right.
expectations,
That should be so hard to say and,
or it should
actually
be something really kitschy.
right, right.
I think
Buffalo
that's
something.
been like a common theme and something that we've tried to really live into throughout the past 15 years is like really speaking for ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does Ginew mean? What's the meaning behind the name?
So Ginew is part of my Ojibwe name, and Ginew means brown eagle. And so that's where it comes from.
I like it.
And it initially was a mostly a men's collection. It was a happy accident to even become a collection, because initially it was belts and leather goods, and then that market got saturated. And then one coffee-fueled crazy idea that I just couldn't give up, and Amanda was just like, "Fine, okay, let's do this," because she was working so much in fellowship at the time. And we made it happen, and it got noticed. And really it was like, we didn't have this plan and a strategy around getting noticed and launching a brand. None. Zero. And for the first,
Happy accident?
yeah, like literally for the first 10 years of the brand, it was completely funded by what we were able to sell and the revenue we generated from the collection. That's how it was funded. No loans, no capital investments, no impact investments. It was all like generative. What we were able to sell and generate from those sales is what we had to make our next piece, item, collection, etc. So it's probably very much like your earlier days in furniture making, which I would love to, if you can get me the name of a place that sells your furniture in Tulsa, I will go look.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't know if that's what you want to be talking about now, but
Well, no, it's about you.
I will. Yeah, I will go look, because I'm really curious to see how other people are advancing this too. Right. And you get back to like expectations and perceptions, even within like the Native world. People sometimes, like other Native designers or like other Native people, have pushed back on a couple things for us too, where it's like, well, your collection's not Native enough. You don't have feathers on it, or you don't have this on it. And I was just like, or you don't have enough like instead of it being more of a cottagecore dress, you should be releasing a modern jingle dress. And it's like, well, that's your perception of what we should be able to do. But like,
Exactly.
our relatives wore cottagecore, our relatives wore workwear, our relatives wore Americana. Like, our relatives continue to wear these things. And so it's just like, even like within that realm around what like native fashion is, there's just a lot of, it's very dynamic and it's moving in a lot of different directions.
Or it's not native because it doesn't look like what their perception of
It's,
what
you know
native
what it's
should
just,
be.
do you
It's
know
like,
to me what it's just like? It's like, there was a really famous native sculptor in the early 1900s. He was Ojibwe from the Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. His name is George Morrison. Have you ever heard of him?
okay. Yeah, I have.
He was one of the very first American Alaska Natives to have an installation in New York that wasn't American Indian arts and crafts. And I think there was something with the Institute of American Indian Art, IAI,
Oh, IAIA, yeah.
where initially there were these two artists, that George Morrison being one of them, that may have been excluded because it wasn't Indian enough. Because he was more of like cubist, expressionist, like sculptor doing this like really wild stuff, but it was still very rooted in his culture and rooted in place and land and materials and what he saw every day and what he lived. And I think we've faced a little bit of that too in, are we going to be like famous designers and like world renowned, like in magazines and all that in the history books? Probably not. Yet, the argument that was used for American Indian art in the early 1900s and the 1930s is the same that's being imposed upon American and Alaska Native fashion designers right now.
It's very prevalent, and I think it's ongoing battle because people's perception, it needs to look like this. It's like, says who?
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
problematic and it's beautiful because it's like people are walking the edge right now. I don't know if you can feel that, but like people are literally walking the edge to break through into something new, to break into something that is beyond what was formerly thought of as American Indian, Alaska native fashion. Like, we're literally walking the edge to break through and to really move beyond that.
And it's very interesting because I think also a lot of people on the outside, the non-natives, don't understand we continue to evolve as people. Our story continues to develop.
Yeah.
Just because something happened 400, 600, or at first contact doesn't mean that's the end of Native American culture or art. We
Right.
continue to grow and our stories continue to evolve.
Yeah.
So,
but it's even like, even within like American Indian art in Santa Fe, there's a lot of horses in the art there. So many horses. Horses have been on this continent for how long?
yeah.
So it just takes time.
True.
Man, you're asking great questions.
Oh.
I didn't expect it.
Well, I can say what your favorite color is, Eric.
Kelly green.
More simpler. Well, both you and Amanda are physicians and designers, and precision is a part of everything you do on both sides. Do you see similarities between stitching a garment and the careful practice of medicine? I mean,
I would
they're
say,
two extremes. So how do you
I would say that there's like a practicality in it, and there's a structure function element in it that just melds and overlaps really, really well. I would say the precision part goes back to what we were talking about a little bit before, where like, if you aren't the one who is in control of your manufacturing, if you are not the one who is actually, and this is another thing, like, well, is it American Indian if you designed it and someone else is making it? Like, who actually made it then? Well, we design things, but if we want to sell 500 coats, 1,000 coats, I'm not making every single one of them. If we're selling one a year, yeah, I'll make it, but not 1,000. And I think when there is some of the the good enoughness that can happen if you have the wrong manufacturing partner. If that bleeds in, that's where that like precision medicine mind of like any error or any mistake can cost somebody dearly. If you have those expectations always for like a t-shirt or whatever, I think it can create a lot of challenges. And even
Right.
like one of the factories that we work with, our production manager we work with has a little saying where she says to the team before they put stuff out, it's got to be Erik good. It's got to be Erik and Amanda good. They will notice and they will say something about it. It's got to be Erik and Amanda good. Not perfect, but it's got to be better than what you're willing to give to somebody else.
True.
So.
Well, I mean, your name is on it, even though it's a brand name, your name and your character, your every aspect is
Yeah.
on it. So,
And it feels like, again, like going back to like, if a pair of Japanese jeans fail or if a pair of Levi's jeans fail, oh, I got a bad piece. If a pair of jeans from an American Indian Alaska Native company fails, oh, I overpaid.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I should have known. You know what I mean? Because there's this idea that like, if it's American Indian or Alaska Native, it's supposed to be inexpensive or cheap, which I also thought was like a really fascinating thing because, you meet some of the artists at market and they're selling their paintings for like $60, $100, $150, $200,000. But then other people with things that are really technical and really difficult are relegated to this like bartering thing that happens when they're sitting on the blankets there. Like the artists that sell on Saturdays on their blankets, like all the bartering that happens. Like I never barter. I never try to, whatever someone says they want for jewelry when we buy it from people in the square, it's what it is.
Yeah.
We don't try to bundle. We don't try whatever because they have put their heart and soul in that stuff and they're like selling it for.
Well, their time and material is no less than any other artist.
Yeah.
So why? Yeah, I get that.
And so I think there is this mentality of like, well, we're like, you should be able to barter with us too, at some level. And it's like, well, sure.
You're not at a roadside,
Right. Yeah. And like, you've brought up some of the like problems and challenges. And I think in many ways, there's been a lot of really beautiful solutions and like beautiful moments in all of this stuff in general. That may not seem like really big, huge wins, but to us, I mean, I remember how hard it was to hook somebody to talk to us at markets in the early days and like over and over, like trying like different lines and different hooks and like distilling it down to like almost like a little like passing pitch to like get people to come and talk to us. And like those little moments are beautiful. Like once we finally landed on something, would get people to stop and talk to us and learn about our story and then invest in or buy into what we were trying to share.
Well, denim has long been seen as quintessential Americana. Why was it important for Ginew to claim that space and say Native people are Americana?
Well, when we look at a lot of our old family photographs, and when I think back of like being a kid on up northern Minnesota, like remembering what people were wearing, seeing old photographs, like hearing stories about the careers and stuff. This actually all got started by me wanting to buy the kind of boots that my great grandfather wore as like a laborer in the railroad work. There was a certain boot that they had to wear because they were getting like burnt by coals. And so there was a certain boot that had to be like up higher to prevent those like little coals from like falling in the front or whatever. And so like that was like the first thing where I was just like, oh, like these are the kind of boots he wore. And then Red Wing still made them and it started making them again. And I went and I bought a pair and then it started like this cascade of like, well, this other, like, this is what he did. And yeah, just like going down that rabbit hole. Big time.
Right.
I mean, we went deep down the rabbit hole cray. I mean, we're like, I was
I
working as
get
a
that.
hospitalist, full-time hospitalist. Amanda was a full-time gynecologic oncology fellow, which is brutal. The
Wow.
hours are brutal. Residents and fellows know that there's 168 hours in every single week, and they know how they spend every single one of them. And they try to maximize how many of them they get to sleep. Okay, so like,
1 or 2 maybe.
yeah, and so, we went deep down that rabbit hole because we just got like really interested in things.
The what ifs and look at that and look at that. No, I
Or
get
like,
that. It's
how
like
come, or like, what was it like for them? Or what would they have wanted had someone been designing? And I think that's where our first coat came from, is I
mhm,
just couldn't get it out of my head. So I had this, like, one of my, like, I think he was like a great or a great grandfather, like the switch from a seasonal existence and going around to like fish camp, sugar bush, this camp, that, like really like moving within the space within northern Minnesota
mhm.
across a territory, like following the foods ultimately
Yep.
and the weather, to like a more rooted, geographically rooted agrarian lifestyle. And like, what would he have wanted to in his clothing that he wore in the fields to remind him of who he is, and to like be important to him too, that could express who he is, right? So
Mhm,
we identified some early barn coats from that era of time, which were basically like denim work coats, and then working with them, like working within the context of like, well, what symbols, like what things matter to us, what may have mattered to him. And he became a thought experiment to me. Like, I never
hmm.
met the guy. Like, he died, I think he died like 80 years or more before anybody that I ever met and knew.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just like to like
Long
do that.
gone.
Yeah. And that's how it like really got us like rooted and connected into, what was possible, what was it like, and what if they would have had, the what ifs like you're talking
Mhm.
about, for sure.
And the meeting, yes, it was items that they wore because they had to protect themselves against the environment and such, but what was it part of who they are, like you said, that they incorporated into their dress and, um, protection, and so it was carried into their
Yeah.
garments. So Gnu uses motifs from your family stories, buffalo, bear, symbols that have been passed down. How do you balance protecting sacred teachings while also sharing stories through clothing like that you've kind of, pulled from?
In many ways, a lot of the symbols that we use are also symbols that are on like traditional or ceremonial clothing.
Mhm.
Why must we relegate our traditional or ceremonial life to a few weekends or events a year? And I think that's
Good
where,
question.
you know what I
That's a
mean?
really
I
good
was
question.
like,
Yeah, no, I
because
get
then
that.
it creates this like duality of like, well, am I in one canoe or am I in two? Because you can't be in
Right,
two canoes, right? Like, you
right.
can't have a foot in both canoes. And so trying to figure out how could we live our life in every day with, and not like outlandish, not like really in your face, but like our genes are loaded with symbols that are
Mhm,
subtle. And most people don't even recognize that they're even there, but we know they're there. And I think those symbols for everybody, like we were taught, like in the teachings, like those teachings were brought down for human beings. Other tribes may have different views on that, have different teachings on that, but like these teachings of like honesty, bravery, kindness, like these things were brought down for human beings.
mhm.
They didn't say like just for us, just for you, just for whatever. And so I think if there are good things that are in those, and if there are powerful good things to get out in the world, try to get out as much powerful good things as we can right now. And I think even if people don't even notice that they're there, we know they're there.
Right.
And even if like Ojibwe and Oneida and Mohican people don't know they're there, we know they're there. But
Mhm.
if there are some of those folks who know what those things mean, and all of a sudden they happen to get one of our products and they look through it and there's like, oh my gosh, like this is here. And it goes way deeper than having like a Thunderbird on stuff, right?
Right.
Like it's like old pictographic symbols and almost like communication symbols that were like between tribes, even, so they could understand like what things meant, so they could like tell the story from these pictographs. Like we have a number of those things in there, and I think it's okay to remember your creation story every single day.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think it's
Absolutely.
okay to have that on you and have like reminders of that on you every single day. And that's our perspective. So I think
Works for
the
me.
thing that's challenging is people are just like, you should give your collection away because you're just selling your culture, you're selling your symbols. And it's just like, that's your perspective.
Yeah.
But mine is, we're trying to share this with the world. We're trying to share good things with the world. We're not trying to monetize and like capitalize off this, right? Like, like a niche denim brand is not like, if we wanted to like scale and make a bunch of money, it's not in niche premium denim. It's in other things. And so I think that's where I think the perception meeting reality is also a very different.
Well, I look at it as a celebration. You're celebrating the culture, the meanings of stories, the past, present, and future
Yeah.
of your people. It's more of it's happier thoughts, and it's a
Yeah.
celebration and honoring.
Yeah. And it's even and even when you say like your people, in many ways, like it's our family, where it's again, like these are things that our family did.
Right.
And so we're honoring and celebrating them and their legacy and trying to pass that forward in many ways to like our children and their cousins and stuff like that. So
For those out there that don't know about Ginew,
Mhm.
your pieces are heirloom quality, and as you briefly mentioned, it has to go through the Erik the Erik Pass. So what does craftsmanship mean to you and Amanda, and why is it non-negotiable for the brand?
when I first started going deep into kind of like what some people call like vintage clothing, etc. There was an elder in my tribe that gave me the wool coat that his great uncle gave him.
That's so fantastic.
So here I am before we made our first coat, walking around rocking an elder of mine from Red Lake wearing the coat that his great uncle gave him a long time ago. Like this coat, I mean, literally was at least 70 years old.
Wow.
Like 75 years old. And when I took it to the manufacturer, they were so excited to see this coat just because like the labels that were on it, it's like, oh man, we haven't seen some of these labels for a few years. Like this is amazing, And I think when you think about legacy and when you think about stewardship, right now I'm looking out over the land that we live on right now. We're guests here, and that great uncle of that elder, that was his coat. He didn't have 30 coats.
Yeah.
Like he had
Probably just had the
one
one.
winter coat
Yep.
and it was awesome. And I think if you can build things that that don't have, like, we're not like building in its demise or, like manufacturing, what do they call that, obsolescence or something like that? There's like a word for it. And like, it's risky for us to build a coat that no one's ever going to buy from us again. It would be better so like getting back to that, like monetization and capitalism stuff, like it'd be better if we built a coat that was cheaper, that would wear out, that someone else would need to replace within 1 or 2 seasons.
Right.
Instead of getting emails from people saying, I have worn this coat for 11 years. It gets better every single year. Thank you for making something that lasts. When you said this garment would last for decades, when I first bought it, I didn't believe you. And now I see the magic in what you're doing. Like that's just it's a completely different customer. It's a completely different frame of reference. And it's all about making things that can be passed on, things that can be worn for a significant portion of your lifetime, and that don't buy into the cycle of like mass consumerism and exploitation of the world, of the earth. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
absolutely.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, I think we're such a throwaway society. Buy now, and get the newest thing, and part of our shared culture is that our ancestors took what they had, they've traveled, they went seasonal, and they've kept it. They used all the product of a buffalo or an animal for their clothing, for their food, for their shelter, and every aspect. And I think having something like that, which you've installed with Ginew, it lasts. You don't need to throw it away. You don't need to buy it every year, every annually. That it's something that you're going to carry with you, appreciate, is going to be part of you. And,
if something is special and if something has purpose, you will not throw it away. And I think that's really what we were doing, is making things that are special, making things that have purpose, knowing that some of these garments may last longer than I do. It's crazy.
But I think it has to be fulfilling as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like a sense of purpose, I would think.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, why do it? Like, like Erik and Amanda Good. Like, why do it if it's going to fall? Like, I tell you what, like, there's this one factory that we would just send stuff back to and be like, redo all the buttons, all of them, redo all of them. Because we told you that you needed to put the button on for this many seconds with the button machine, and you're doing half of that. And doing half the time means there's half the threads there, which means it may not be tied. It's not as durable. It's not tied off right. They're going to fall off in a year or two. We can't have that.
Right.
And that's where, like, I'm still wearing like one of the pieces I'm like the most proud of that I have in my closet is my dad's Vietnam field coat. Buttons have not fallen off that, and he got that in 69, 70.
Wow.
The buttons have held true. Like, that's the level of, like, it cannot fail.
It's about standing. Well,
would you want to be our manufacturer? Like, you're cutting corners on like not putting the button on right. I'm sorry. It's not good enough.
Next.
Next. So.
No, I get it, because coming from the other side, in the furniture side, I get that, every aspect. And some people might think I'm anal retentive or an asshole.
There's purpose in what you're doing, though, right? But it's like you can't have like the rubber grommets on the bottom of your furniture that are gonna like either be brittle in 6 to 10 months. Like, they literally have to last. So you're gonna make them with the materials that are gonna last.
Yeah. Again, it's not about the bottom line or the bottom dollar or anything like that. It's like quality. I'm standing behind something. It means something to me as a person, as an individual, and yeah. Well, Ginew often collaborates with other Native creatives. How do those partnerships shape the spirit of the brand?
So Amanda and I, we have day jobs. We have really great day jobs. And I think
busy day jobs.
What's that?
Busy day jobs.
We have careers. We have really intense, purpose-driven careers. We have careers that give back and produce a lot for Indian country, whether it's monetarily, whether it's in health, whether it's in, education, like all of those things. nation building. We have nation building day careers, literally economic development and nation building day careers. And I think there were some moments where we recognize that American Indian artisans are in many ways just hanging on by a thread. If there's anything we could do with our brand, anything to help elevate and or lift up or help those, partner with people, not just help them, but partner with people so that they could rise up, maintain a certain cost of living. And like, there was this, I think the very first time that we thought about this was through my travels, met a family that has the mineral rights to a very special type of mineral. They have all of the mineral rights in the world for a certain mineral. And I befriended these people because there's just some like serendipitous coincidences. And we actually became like friends and started talking, communicating a lot. And there's like, if you ever encounter anybody who needs this mineral, we will send it to somebody anonymously, free of charge. We'll just, no questions asked. If it's going to help somebody lift and rise up out of a challenge. And we encountered someone who needed this mineral, who had come on like really hard times, no fault of their own. And we like used the Ginew network to have this like box of mineral show up anonymously. And there was like, what just happened?
It's great.
That's Ginew. That's like, there was a large, I don't know if they called it like a collective, where a bunch of Native artisans were selling through another brand, and it was really amplifying their profile and really getting the word out about them. And it was providing a means for them to live more comfortably. Not that like living hand to mouth. If I don't sell at the market this weekend, then I'm not sure if I can eat or buy more materials. Do I buy more materials or do I eat? You know? And that collective collapsed. And all of a sudden, overnight, we had people like emailing us like crazy. There's like, what do we do? 70% of my income and sales came from this collective, and it collapsed. And so that's when we started being more intentional. The very first artist we partnered with was based off of a friendship, based off of shared history and having known each other for a very long time. And then it was like all of a sudden something we had done once before became a vehicle to partner with and lift others up within the space and the community. Are we making people like ultra wealthy? And like, no, we're not. We're providing just a little bit of an extra boost where people can get their work out there. We can elevate their voice. We can elevate their design, their styles. We can provide a platform for them to sell some of their goods. And it's like, it was just, Ginew was very small in that. And yet it was enough where it made a difference to at least a handful of people. And I think that's where the partnership really came in. And that's where it was like really intriguing.
Well, it's a sense of community. And again, I think it goes back to our culture, us as Indigenous Native Americans. That is part of our essence, is helping that community and the people around us and providing that platform to lifting them up and finding their own path to success, whatever it may be. But at least, you have the support infrastructure behind you.
Yeah. And I think this is where like venture capital or like capitalism like doesn't understand Indigenous culture, because they're just like, okay, Ginew, you need to only partner with people that will lift you up. You shouldn't be partnering with artists that are not known yet who can't lift you up. Like, you shouldn't be partnering with artists that you're lifting up. You should only be partnering with brands and artists that lift you up. So it was like a complete frame shift. And I think that was that was difficult.
How does Ginew serve as a corrective, a way to reclaim imagery and authenticity?
We don't really think of ourselves as like a movement or a leader in doing that. We're really maintaining being authentic to like who we are and to ourselves. And in that, I think there's a notion of like we're not necessarily like reclaiming anything. We're being something. So instead of like trying to get something back from the past that we don't have,
Mhm.
we're trying to share now or share into the future something that's already within us and a part of us. So I think it's different from reclamation work for us, because we already knew these stories.
Right, right.
Like we already knew, so it wasn't like reclaiming anything. I would say that the one thing that's been probably the most, I don't know if Ginew played as much of a part of this as becoming parents did. I think that we're less about identity now and more about being something. So an example would be as soon as we became parents, we really doubled down on language. Both of my children now, 2.5, 4 3/4, or 2 and 4, however you want to say it, they know more language now than I did, even as a 20-year-old.
Ojibwe and Oneida?
Ojibwe. I don't know any Oneida. I know like a few words. Do you know what I mean? But it's like,
Yeah.
and then having there's this really awesome school, and there's a number of, you talk about like being on the edge of a moment, like a bunch of edge walkers. There's a bunch of edge
Mhm.
walkers around language in our area, and a bunch of them are really young. Really young. And people are starting to speak the language more than I remember as a kid.
Right.
Like the only time you'd ever hear the language spoken when I was a kid was at a funeral.
Mhm.
It wasn't just sitting around. And
Mhm.
now, you've got the Anton Troyers, the Byron Ninhams, the, Mike Sullivans, the Adrian Benjamins, you've got these people. I just named like real people
Mhm.
doing such amazing work through teachings and stories and things that were gifted to them, and they're really lifting people up. So it's like living into, instead of living into sovereignty because you have a card that says you're a citizen of a federally recognized tribe, it's living into sovereignty because you speak your language
Right.
and you know your ways and you show up. It's just, maybe this is something that happens to dudes when they're in their like middle of their life, or like just over the middle of their life. I don't know. You're getting real on me here now, but it's like, does it matter to put an Ojibwe word on a t-shirt, or does it matter to make sure that your kids can talk that word
Mhm.
and know and truly understand what it means?
Absolutely.
Like, so I think authenticity has taken on a very new meaning in our lives
Mhm.
within the last 4 years, where, like, I am so proud of our children when they're communicating with English speaking people and they're talking about the world around them or whatever, or talking with like other Ojibwe people around here, and they're expressing the world around them. Their first go-to with a number of those words is Ojibwe and not English. Like,
That's
that
powerful.
is so profound to me
Mhm.
because it hasn't been like that in my personal family for a very long time.
Oh, I think a lot of
A
us
very,
in
very
a
long
certain
time.
age
And
group,
it's
yeah.
like those edge walking steps, I mean, that's authenticity.
Mhm.
I mean, great. We get a per cap. Great. We don't get a per cap, but it's like, and I shouldn't minimize that, Okay, I'm not trying to minimize that. I'm trying to say, like, there's something really beautiful happening in Indian country that extends so far and deep, and we're
Mhm.
just on the edge of it. And frankly, I shouldn't minimize per cap because per cap allowed, and some of the revenue generating things that happened in the 80s and 90s allowed this moment to happen.
Mhm. It's, in a sense, coming full circle, we've our self-rediscovery. Um,
An elder once
it's
told
very
me
powerful.
she looked at me and she was just like, "You just got to let it out. It's already inside of you. You just need to let it out." And I was like, "Oh, I get it." Or it's
Yeah, right.
like it's like I don't know.
Well, speaking about your kids, they're growing up watching their parents run a native-owned fashion
They
brand.
have no idea.
Oh, they don't?
None.
So,
They know we're
well,
doctors. They do. And they know that there's these, like, clothes around, but that, like, literally, they're 2 and 4. Like, they know that we wear these clothes,
that mom and dad made or are part of?
I
Well,
don't
what do you
even
hope that they'll carry
I don't
with
even
them
know if
from
they
that
know that.
example? Oh,
That's
really?
yeah, I'm thinking about that, like, I don't know if they actually know that. You just made me wonder something.
This evening, you'll have a little sit-down
Yeah.
chat. Did you
Did you
know?
know that Baba and Mama made these clothes? Designed them? Did you know that? Yeah.
There you go. Hey,
Yeah, and we just,
glad I can bring something to the forefront for you.
yeah, we just, moved some books out of one of our, out of a apartment office that we have,
Mhm.
like we moved some books out of another house of ours, and, there's a book called Fashioning America that was made by the Crystal Bridges Museum, and our kids one day will be able to flip through that magazine or that book. It is a book.
Mm.
It is like a coffee table book, and we were included in that for being like uh basically like an American fashion Americana, like, significant moment in time. They call it like grit to glamour. It was like a deep dive into Americana, and they asked for the very first prototype pair of jeans and the very first prototype barn coat we made, and the blanket that we wanted to share at this time. So it was one of Deani Whitehawk's blankets,
Yeah, okay.
and it was the very first barn coat ever. The first one of the prototype that we made, and then the prototype of the jean. Um, and they were on display there at that museum I think it's in Arkansas, Crystal Bridges
Yeah.
Museum.
Christian,
It was on display for like a year and a half. Like,
fantastic.
that's crazy stuff. And it's like, it's a coffee table book. Like, maybe one day they'll flip through it and they'll be like, "Oh, mama, baba,"
Uh-huh.
whatever. Like,
Hey, I didn't know. You never told me.
or they'll just be like, "Yeah, whatever. Everybody's parents does that."
Right, right.
So that gets back to another point. Like, so we have these children now who it's normal to go to jingle dress parties, right? It's
Mhm.
normal to use some of the words we use. It's normal for having an American Indian doctor mom and American Indian doctor dad and entrepreneur parents. Like, it's normal. Whereas, like, this wasn't normal at all when I grew up. Like, that's that
I get
edge
that, yeah.
walking. That's moving it forward. That's like cool
Mhm.
stuff.
Well, a little bit about you and Amanda. Building a brand as life partners is no small thing. What have you learned about each other through Ginew that you may have not discovered otherwise?
Mm, I think because I was like a little bit more outspoken about the men's collection. Um, and because Ginew was so much of like a men's collection initially, that I learned that she had so much more voice and interest in this than I'd ever thought when we started releasing some women's items. Like when I saw her at the presentation of what we had come up with for like a concept board and like who our avatars were, and that was like a really beautiful moment to just see her contributions in that, because in many ways before that it was like, here's a dude's pair of jeans, here's a predominantly men's silhouette heritage coat, here's a predominantly men's silhouette Americana coat. But then to see like her wheels start to turn and to like share that creativity from some of those cottagecore pieces that we put out, many of the names are after her, like many of the names are after relatives on her side of the family, which is really beautiful. And I would also say, like, man, she's so incredibly organized and incredibly practical. And I think if you mentioned Lenape before, but the women in Oneida communities, like, there's a reason why when you encounter Native people who are in the C-suite around this country, there's a reason there's so many Oneida people represented there. And a lot of times it's women, Oneida women who are leading and running big companies, who are in the executive VP or C-suite roles at big companies. That is not an accident.
Right.
There's something about their culture, and I have grown to appreciate that more and more and more, more and more. Whereas, like, maybe Ojibwe men tend to follow the Chief Buganagashig way of being like real pretty like artistic, creative dreamers. And then they follow the clan mother way, which is very interesting. And I don't like my window into Oneida is pretty limited. And it's mostly like I have gone to like longhouse things twice. So like I haven't gone to a lot of that. I've gone to more of like the food things. And now they're doing some really interesting things to bring the children back for culture camps to like learn what it means to be Oneida in the summers. And I think I'll get a more of a insight into that. But I think the greatest insights I've had to it have been in those like community circumstances or community situations where the clan mothers are making some decisions, and that's just been really powerful to see. So I don't know if that's like a too big of a tangent for you, Francie.
No, it's all good.
It's been really, and like, it's another thing too, like just because you're American Indian doesn't mean that you come from the same family teachings, have the same experience, or like all that kind of stuff, like Oneida of Green Bay, they have great sidewalks and lights and fancy street signs and really nice subdevelopments on the reservation. They have an NFL football stadium at the eastern door of their reservation. Like, that is very different than a remote northern Minnesota million square mile checkerboarded. It's just like worlds apart. And I think just like learning the nuances about each other and like what matters and how it matters and how you want to show up in that space is like has been pretty awesome.
Very true. What has been the most emotional moment for you when you were out somewhere and saw someone wearing Ginew out in the world?
Where was I? Three. I have three.
Okay.
I was in Detroit, Michigan. My grandma had passed away just before COVID. It was October, right before COVID happened. She's like 96 years old. And I was literally walking in it was just like all these like really interesting like brick buildings. I don't know if it's called Bricktown or Corktown or something. I was walking around, I was just like checking stuff out. And I ran into someone who used to live in Portland who bought the very first Ginew denim rider jacket we'd ever made. We only made 40 of them just to try it out, 40 or 48. And it was made of this really hard to get fabric that was custom made for this really exclusive high-end brand by a Japanese denim mill. And that man loved his coat so much he'd worn it every day for like 3 or 4 years straight in all sorts of environments and stuff. And then like the unbelievable fades of that jacket, like it looked like a rock star's coat. It was so cool. That was just knowing that someone was so dedicated into and living in and etching their story into something that we'd made was really, really powerful. And then there was a random moment in Mexico. We were sitting on the coast of this place, like we were sitting watching a sunset somewhere, and all of a sudden we hear it was like, Ginew?
Like, what?
What? And a man was like, oh, Christ, we can't go anywhere. You know what I mean? And that was a cool moment. And then we have some friends that are musicians, and we've met them over the years. And the Ginew has very much been about the relationships and some of the like spheres that have crossed over and afforded us meeting people before their rise to like fame or stardom or whatever you want to call it, but literally meeting people when they were struggling to make it and now they've made it. There was one band that has very much made it, and the opening act for them came off the stage, and one of their lead singer and their bassists pretty much lost it nerding out over me being there. They were
That's
like,
cool.
we're such denim heads, and like we follow your brand, and we're from this, like, and like we can't believe we're seeing, and like we've been able to, we've made friends, and we've expanded our social circle is so different because of the brand. And I think the greatest thing we've probably received from what we've put into Ginew has been the social creative circle of other dreamers, creatives, really not ambitious to like make money, but ambitious to make something positive in the world. People who use their stories to do something great, people who use their pain to make it into something beautiful for others to benefit from. Like, I mean, unbelievable. And like some of the streets we've walked down and the corners of the earth we've been in because of this brand, like if there's somebody who's younger who's watching this or listens to this, enjoy every single second you have, because you just never know if you're going to go back to them. Like, you can't recreate some of these moments.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the beauty of this, is like looking back on the last 15 years, there's been some of these moments where I'm glad I was so present in the moment not to be like overthinking it. But like now I'm like, that was such a precious moment. I'm never going back to that ever again. Like I didn't realize how precious it was in the moment. Now I have it in my memory because I was there, I was present, I got to experience this stuff.
Right.
And that has just been, I'm so grateful for that. I'm talking like truck rides across the country with people. I'm talking like visiting shops in Prague or in Czech Republic and then going out and experiencing what Czech Republic looks like through their eyes, or with other brands or other shops like around like Sweden, Tokyo, Japan, Mexico, Canada, like things that have happened that are just those beautiful moments in life. Like, slow down and savor that stuff.
Absolutely.
You
You
know?
can't repeat it. It
You
happens
cannot.
once.
Yeah.
Nope.
Anyway, I don't know if you've got kids or nephews and nieces and all that kind of stuff, but it's really,
Mm-hmm.
that's what Ginew has kind of taught me about my own children too.
Mm-hmm.
Savor the moments that are hard.
Yeah. Because he will pass and you can't repeat it.
You cannot live it again. And I don't know if you can tell, but like the sun is coming and there's a white table here and it's like starting to like gleam on me. It's like, no. And
Eric is glowing.
yeah, I'm so
angelic.
And I'm not, this isn't sort of supposed to like turn into like a therapy session here, Cray, but geez, like, I will say this has been one of the better Zoom conversations I've had in a really long time, where I feel like I'm able to like connect with you on a different level, where like I'm not sitting here thinking about like email and like other stuff that I have to be doing.
Appreciate that. I'm glad.
Because I mean, I live so much within the virtual space that it's hard to connect.
Yeah, it is.
On
Especially
virtual.
this day and age, it is hard to connect. And before we even started, it's like, I gave you the opportunity to, since you're going to be in Tulsa, to maybe we could do a recap.
Oh yeah,
you're in Tulsa,
and even if it like we go to
if not, or coffee, whatever.
Yeah, coffee. go to Bull in the Alley. Maybe hit up Brodt or Hemingway's or something like that. And yeah, it'd be kind of.
I got one big final question for you. What's next for you and Amanda, and what's next for Ginew?
Wow, this has all been such a happy accident that you never know what is next, and you never know what the next thing is that you either need to say or don't need to say.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that this fall, for anybody who's watching or listening, we've got the women's wax rider. We've got the women's wax Ginew coat, which is in many ways a culmination of what we've been trying to do for the past 15 years. And like, that's going to be out there for all the women who've been asking when we have a women's wax coat and a women's silhouette. It's coming. It's here.
It's coming.
It's
forthcoming.
Yeah, I saw it yesterday. We got 2 of them on Amanda's bed right now. She's trying out the 2 different sizes, see which ones she wants to keep forever. And then also, we've got the wax rider coats with the Pendleton lining are back this year. And like
it's on my shopping list.
They will not last. So I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Like, once they hit the live on Saturday, you either need to go for them or not, because they don't come around very often. So, and they're here. And I think like what's next for us, I think like leaning into authentically being like who we're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like that whole like midlife stuff, or the parents of a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old stuff. But it's like, how do we live into being who we are right here, right now, and focusing on teaching our children how to walk in their life in a good way. Like, that's the good stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I wonder if they even know that we own a clothing brand.
That's a chat you have to have this evening.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, my friend, it's been a complete honor and pleasure to have you on our show today, and thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Much continued success to Ginew and to you and Amanda as you move forward on your journey.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you, and I look forward to meeting up with you in Tulsa.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right on.
Well, that's a wrap for us,
all right,
and we will chat soon. Erik and Ginew reminds us that design can be both radical and rooted. Through Ginew, he challenges an industry to slow down, to honor lineage, and to understand that Indigenous creativity is not just a reference point, it is a living, evolving force. This conversation leaves us with a powerful truth. When culture leads, innovation follows. This is Beyond the Art.